Hello, everyone, and welcome to Snowflake Ventures. Hot off the press, Observe Inc., the AI-powered observability company, has closed $156 million in a Series C funding round, led by Sutter Hills Ventures, with participation from Madrona Ventures, Alumni Ventures, Capital One Ventures, and Snowflake Ventures. To dive into this announcement and more, I'm delighted to be joined in the studio with their CEO, Jeremy Burton. Jeremy, such a pleasure to be with you here today.
Thanks for having me.
Looking forward to diving in. To start with, let's look at the numbers. In the last year, you tripled revenue and doubled your enterprise customer base, all with an industry-leading net revenue retention rate of 180%. What do you contribute this success to, and how will this next chapter serve to supercharge your already remarkable growth trajectory?
It starts with the product. We're in the tech business, and if you don't have good tech, it's difficult to be successful. And we've tried to not just obviously build new features and keep pace, which I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit more, but try and keep the engineering team close to the customer. I think as a young company, you don't have every feature. You don't have everything that every customer would need. And so I think early on, it's pretty important to sort of keep your ear to the ground and listen to what the customer's saying. And it's one of those cliches or that everybody says, but it's really, really hard to do. And I think we've been able to, in the past couple, 3 years, do that, which means that when we land a new account, we've been able to then very quickly expand. And they believe in opening up new use cases to us because we've delivered quickly. And so that's really been, I think, the secret to success. Sort of be humble, listen, and then when a customer needs something, make sure that you execute. And it sounds simple, but those are the basics, which I think you have to do to be successful in this world.
I love that. Great perspective. And now I want to look at the larger macro environment. In today's hyper-competitive world, change is very much all around us. How do you ensure your team consistently pushes the boundaries of innovation in observability? And how does this funding round serve to validate your overall business approach on how the team is going against the status quo, resulting in greater returns for your end users?
I think you've got to have a healthy paranoia. It's an Andy Groveism, only the paranoid survive. It's so true though. So how do you get your engineering team in a place where they think, okay, what would a startup do if they were in our situation? So someone starting today, how would they build it? And so some of these, new things that you need to embrace, I mean, AI being the classic, we're not a brand new AI native company, but there are companies out there that are looking to solve observability problems with that AI native mindset. So we've got to try and put our engineering minds in that seat. And we've done some pretty rad things, like we've peeled off a chunk of the engineering team and to start from scratch, and so we could move quickly, sort of fork the code base so we can keep up with the innovations in the latest and greatest models. So I think that sort of beginner's mind and what would a startup do in this situation, it sort of keeps you focused, and it allows you to sort of not be encumbered by the technical debt that you've created over the last several years.
Great perspective, and love the mindset. And now want to pivot slightly to explore your North Star. You're on a mission to reshape software development for the AI age through observability, and have announced a fantastic lineup of innovations. What does this look like in practice? And in layman's terms, how does the Observe team bring this to life on a day-to-day basis?
The workflows are changing. The buzzword du jour is agentic AI. What does that really mean? Well, what it means is that there's a set of sort of intelligent software agents that are going to drive most of the workflows in the organization. And observability is one of those workflows, the troubleshooting workflow. And so we've got to rethink from first principles, how will people troubleshoot this next generation of applications? And 80%, I believe, 80% of our users in the next few years, I don't think they'll log into Observe.
Wow.
I think they'll stay in their native development environment, in their IDE, and they'll converse with Observe. Or maybe they're using Cursor or Augment Code or something like that. And they'll be saying things like, hey, I've got this ticket. It seems like there's a lot of 500 errors. Can you go investigate this with Observe? explain the code that may be responsible, and maybe even suggest a fix. And so that's a workflow which a year ago even you would never have conceived.
Right.
But that's what people want to do. And it's a complete reinvention of the developer workflow. And we've got to embrace that. We've got to make it work better than anyone else, because we're not the only ones trying to solve this problem. But we still feel at the core, and this has been at the core of Observe since day one, it's a data problem. Now, we happen to be conversing with our data in a natural language, and maybe not clicking around a UI or using SQL, but you still need to go query vast quantities of data, investigate where those 500 errors are, and make sense of it and return that to the user. So the core of the problem is not that different, but the way we solve it for the user is very, very different.
Great to hear about the overall user experience, and I want to continue to dive a little bit deeper on the technical side. What is Observe's key differentiator, and how does your approach give your patrons that competitive edge?
Yeah, there's a couple of things which will definitely sound familiar from a Snowflake standpoint. We were the first observability vendor to bet on a data lake as the foundation. If it's event data, maybe it's traces, or maybe it's logs, or maybe it's time series data, we treat all event data the same. It goes in a data lake. And the economics of that data lake are quite astounding, because not just is it sort of a commodity storage S3 foundation, we compress the data 10x. So you can ingest data at a fraction of the cost. In an observability, if you were to interview 10 people right now, 9 of them would say that their biggest pain point is cost. So we were the first to really embrace that approach. But you've got to make sense of the data. So we sort of curate that data into something we call a knowledge graph. So we store a lot of the semantics of the data, a lot of the relationships between the data, and that's really what enables us to answer those hard observability questions most quickly. That also helps us with the AI approach. If you've got semantics around the data, it turns out that your AI will hallucinate less. You'll get more accurate answers more quickly. So the combination of the sort of economics with the data lake, and then some of the insight that the knowledge graph brings, delivered through an AI interface, that's really the reason why folks are picking Observe.
Well, it's great to hear, and I love the opportunity sitting down with CEOs, and I'd love to get a little bit more personal with you, if you don't mind. Building and scaling a world-class team is not an easy feat. How do you look to empower the team around you, and what have your key lessons been while serving as CEO?
I think the hardest thing as a CEO is, and certainly for folks who've been very good individual contributors in their career, it's hard to sort of let things go and let the team work for you. So obviously you've got to spend a chunk of your time hiring. You're only going to have a high performance team if you've got high performance individuals on that team. So you've got to hire great people. Number two, you've got to make this team of individuals work together. And I feel like that's my biggest job. And those individuals, or those teams even, have got different backgrounds. The sales team and the engineering team, it's a classic conflict. So how do you get them to work together? And I think most importantly, you've got to keep the team humble. You've got to create an environment where people feel like it's not just okay to bring problems, but it's actually expected. If we just focused on all the things that we did great, we would never get to market fit. We would never be a successful company. But you've got to really obsess about the things that are broken. That can be quite hard at times, particularly in a Silicon Valley culture where, we like to celebrate the good things and
hard to celebrate the wins.
Right. Everything is awesome, but usually in the startup, everything is not awesome. And so creating an environment where people feel like they can bring problems, they can discuss problems. And then again, if you've hired the right folks, smart people will come up with, ingenious solutions to the problems that you identify. But it's a sort of, humility that creates the environment that then allows people to bring problems, discuss the problems, come up with solutions, and then, really set a culture that, it's important to deliver on what you've committed to. Because if the customer's waiting forever for a solution to a problem, well, they're not going to wait forever. It's a competitive market. There's plenty of choices. They're going to go somewhere else. So I always think as a startup, it's a race. You do oversell and then you hang on. and you rely on the fact that you can deliver in time for when the customer expects a solution. So yeah, there's probably a number of things in there, but they're all sort of interrelated and intertwined.
Well, I really appreciate that personal reflection, very much a top-down approach, Jeremy, and we're very excited to be part of your latest funding round. From your perspective, what does it mean being a Snowflake Ventures portfolio company, and how does this go beyond just capital, and how does the strategic relationship specifically enabled your growth and innovation in the market, and what impact is the AI Data Cloud's ecosystem having on your clients?
Yeah, I mean, we made a very early bet on Snowflake. We bet big time on the technology. We were one of the first vendors to choose a commercial database to underlie our product. So it was a big bet on technology. We have to aggressively adopt the latest and greatest from Snowflake. Part of our strategy is that we can move engineers from sort of infrastructure up the stack over time. Let Snowflake take care of a lot of the database infrastructure and get our engineers adding value on top of it. And I think in recent years, the partnership has moved beyond sort of strictly engineering. We have quite a burgeoning go-to-market partnership. Half our pipeline at this point is either Snowflake sourced or Snowflake influenced.
Great to hear.
So that feels good that you're not only supplying technology to us, you're actually helping make our business successful. And then, the investment that Stefan and team have made, we want to make it valuable for every investor, Snowflake included. So yeah, it started in the early days with just technology, but has now very much broadened. And we are actually big customers of other Snowflake ecosystem partners, folks like Sigma Computing, Relational AI. So yeah, we've sort of looked to solve other problems in our business, using the Snowflake ecosystem.
Great to hear about the broader power of that partnership and ecosystem. What's next for Observe, and how will you and the team continue to push the boundaries of observability to new heights?
Yeah, two things. The big word in data lakes right now is Apache Iceberg. Snowflake obviously has done a lot of work in this area. We've had all the sort of private preview releases of the Apache Iceberg support in Snowflake. So that hopefully this year will go out production. Customers for the first time can store all of their telemetry data in an open format. They don't have to be owned by a vendor. They can store it in an open Iceberg format. And then the march on AI. In fact, this summer we've called our Summer of AI.
I love that.
We released the MCP server. We've got new agentic workflows based on that MCP server. And then we've got a brand new, really, really innovative offering coming in a little bit later this year that I think can probably change the game. And looking forward to that one. So the Summer of AI, and then on the back end, the Iceberg support they're probably the two biggest things that we're working on.
An exciting next chapter indeed. Thank you so much for joining me here this morning.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity.
And for the audience watching, thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Ryan Green with Snowflake. We'll see you soon.